Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I'm a 36-year-old man, married to Allie, who's 37. We've been together for 7 years, and for much of that time, I believed our relationship was solid and unshakable. But lately, I've found myself doubting everything. It feels like our marriage is teetering on the edge, leaving me to question whether those 7 years ever truly reflected the partnership I thought we had. The turning point came last month during a visit to my grandfather's farmhouse. It was his 89th birthday, and with his health declining, our family decided to organize a celebration in his honor. Allie joined me for the event, but she left the following morning to return to her job. I opted to stay for the week, working remotely so I could spend more time with my grandfather. Each evening, Allie and I kept in touch through video calls, trying to maintain our connection despite the physical distance. Things took a startling turn midway through the week during one of our nightly calls. We were chatting casually when Allie asked a question that shook me to my core. "Have you ever thought about opening our marriage?" she said. Her words hit me like a bolt of lightning. My heart sank, and my mind began racing. At that moment, I was juggling a few tasks, but her question immediately derailed my focus. I turned toward the screen, hoping I'd misunderstood. "Can you repeat that?" I asked. She sighed as if I were being dramatic and said, "I'm just asking, why don't we open up our marriage? Explore other people. It could be fun, something new to try." Her tone was so nonchalant, as though she were suggesting a weekend activity or a new restaurant. I was stunned into silence. This idea was utterly foreign to the relationship we'd built. We weren't the type of couple who needed outside stimulation to keep things interesting. When I finally found my voice, I replied, "No, I've never thought about it, and I don't want to." She shrugged, brushing off my reaction. "I was just curious. Other couples seem to enjoy it. Even some celebrities do it, and it works for them," she said, rattling off examples. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. My chest tightened as I struggled to process why she was even considering this. "Why are you bringing this up now, Allie?" I asked, my voice strained. "What made you think this is something we should explore?" She explained that she'd been reading about polyamory and found it intriguing. She insisted it was just a casual curiosity, nothing more. I listened carefully, then firmly reiterated, "No, that's not for me. I'm not willing to share you with anyone else. That's not the kind of marriage I signed up for." She nodded, but her expression betrayed a flicker of disappointment. She quickly pivoted the conversation to another topic, but I couldn't shake the sense that this was far from over. Though I had planned to stay at the farmhouse a few more days, the weight of our conversation was unbearable. I cut my visit short and headed home the next day, feeling uneasy. When I arrived, Allie was still at work. I couldn't ignore a nagging suspicion that her suggestion might mean she was already cheating, or thinking about it. I searched through her things, her closet, her makeup bag, but found no evidence of infidelity. When she came home later, she seemed unfazed to see me. "I figured you'd come back early after our talk," she said with a faint edge of sarcasm. The conversation quickly escalated. "Are you accusing me of cheating?" she demanded when I pressed her on the topic. I told her I wasn't accusing her, but that I was deeply troubled by her sudden interest in an open marriage. Her reply floored me. "That's the beauty of an open marriage. You don't have to worry about cheating. You know your partner loves you and they're not going anywhere. Isn't that enough?" "No," I said resolutely. "That's not how I see it. It's our responsibility to make each other feel secure, not to share our lives with others to fix insecurities." The tension rose until I finally asked her outright if she was being unfaithful. She responded by offering me her phone, daring me to check it. But I knew better. If she was prepared for my suspicions, she'd have already covered her tracks. I handed her phone back untouched. "I trust you," I said, though doubt still gnawed at me. She began crying, insisting she'd never cheated and that her suggestion had been nothing more than a fleeting thought. Her tears softened me and I felt guilty for doubting her. We reconciled, and for a short while things seemed to return to normal. But soon Allie's behavior began to change. She became more distant, distracted, and preoccupied. She stayed late at work more often, citing vague reasons. Whenever I voiced my concerns, she dismissed them, offering her phone each time as if to reassure me. Still, my gut told me something was off. Around this time, I was offered a 3-week assignment in Germany, a significant career opportunity. But the timing felt awful. Leaving Allie during such a fragile moment in our relationship filled me with apprehension. After much deliberation, I accepted the offer, convincing myself that I was overthinking everything. While in Germany, our communication dwindled. At first, we messaged each other daily, but soon her replies grew terse and infrequent. I sent her long updates about my day and expressed how much I missed her, only to receive curt, one-word responses. When I asked if everything was okay, she repeated her usual refrain. "I'm just busy. Don't worry." Then, during one of our rare calls, Allie brought up the idea of an open marriage again. This time, her tone was decisive, not speculative. "You see," she said, "this is why open marriages work. There are no boundaries. You're away for weeks, I have needs, and you're afraid of me cheating? Wouldn't it be easier if we just embraced the idea?" Her words felt less like a suggestion and more like a decision already made. Her decision was final. It was clear nothing I said would make a difference. Stunned into silence, I managed only to promise that we'd discuss it when I returned. Cutting my trip short, I resolved to uncover the truth for myself. I didn't inform Allie of my early return, wanting to gauge her reaction when she thought I was still miles away. As I stepped inside, the house seemed unnaturally tidy, as though she'd gone to great lengths to craft an illusion of normalcy. She greeted me with a startled smile that felt oddly artificial, almost as if it had been practiced. I observed her closely, careful not to betray my growing doubts. Discreetly, I checked her phone but found no evidence of anything suspicious. For a moment, I questioned whether I was overreacting. Convincing myself I might be imagining things, I waited for her to bring up the subject again. She didn't. Then, just yesterday, she burst into the room after work, her tone sharp and insistent. "We need to talk about this now," she declared. Bewildered, I replied, "Talk about what?" Avoiding my eyes, she said, "I've been speaking to some people. There's this couple I know who've been doing it for a while. They swear by it. I think we should try it too." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. "What are you even talking about? Who are these people?" After a pause, she confessed to meeting the couple on an online forum. They were advocates for open marriages and had been encouraging her to explore the lifestyle. "You've been discussing this with strangers?" I shouted, disbelief dripping from my voice. "Do you realize how absurd this is?" Her response floored me. "I've been trying to get you to see things differently, but you're stuck in your outdated ideas about marriage. I'm done waiting for you. I'm opening this marriage whether you agree or not." Her declaration hit me like a physical blow. Gripping her shoulders, I demanded, "Have you already cheated on me? Tell me the truth." Her face flushed, and after a brief hesitation, she admitted to seeing someone else. She tried to minimize it, saying, "It was just once, and I thought you'd eventually come around and join me." Her casual tone about such a betrayal left me reeling. Anger surged within me, a rare and dangerous occurrence. "You thought I'd join you?" I roared. "Cheating is cheating, whether it's once or 1,000 times. You've destroyed my trust. This ends here." I stormed out, consumed by rage, needing to escape before I did something I'd regret. That night I stayed at my cousin's place, grappling with the realization that my marriage was falling apart. The next morning, I returned to collect a few essentials, planning to stay at a motel while deciding my next steps. I avoided seeing her, fearing it might push me over the edge. Over the following days, I remained at the motel, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Fury, heartbreak, and uncertainty battled within me. Despite everything, I couldn't ignore the love I still felt for her, which only deepened the pain. Allie sent me a single message during this time. "I know you're angry, and I understand, but I wanted this to be something we did together, not against each other. It's not cheating, I love you, and this could bring us closer. You'll see that eventually." Her words solidified my resolve. Without delay, I contacted a divorce lawyer, paying extra to expedite the process. A week later, I returned to the house and found her on the phone, blatantly flirting with someone. She didn't even flinch upon seeing me. Instead, she smiled and hung up, attempting to embrace me. "I knew you'd come around," she said. "This is going to be amazing. I'll even help you find someone." I stepped back, meeting her gaze coldly. "I filed for divorce," I stated. Her face froze before she burst into laughter. "You're not serious. You love me. You wouldn't do this." I stayed silent, already mentally moving on. In the days that followed, I prepared for my departure with precision. I avoided conversations and minimized interactions. Quietly, I rented a condo and began moving my belongings there when she wasn't home. She was too engrossed in her fantasies to notice. When the divorce papers arrived, I waited for her to leave for work before packing up the rest of my things. I left her belongings scattered across the floor and recorded our recent interactions as evidence, knowing the divorce could turn contentious. That evening, she returned to find the house half empty. Her stunned expression was almost satisfying. "This isn't real," she mumbled. "You're just trying to scare me." I couldn't help but laugh. "It's real," I said. "You brought this on yourself." As reality hit her, she unraveled, but I had already made my escape. The life we had built together was over, and I was ready to move forward, leaving her and the betrayal behind. She crumpled into sobs, her hands gripping my face tightly, as she poured out a confession of love, begging me not to leave her. She insisted that she had done everything within her power to rekindle the bond in our marriage, pleading with me to move past the events of recent months. Tearfully, she vowed to sever all ties with other men and commit entirely to monogamy, imploring me to give her a chance to make things right. Her voice trembled with desperation as she held on to me, her words an attempt to stop me from walking away. Her pleas soon became a relentless echo, each phrase blending into the next. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll change. I promise there will be no one else. Just don't leave me." My response was a bitter chuckle, its hollow sound cutting through her desperate words. "You're only saying this because you see I'm done," I replied, my voice void of warmth. "But it's too late now. You made your decisions, and you'll have to live with the consequences." I continued packing my things, resolutely ignoring her cries as she collapsed against the doorway. Without turning back, I stepped out and drove away. When she attempted to reach me later, I blocked her number and every other way she could contact me. Even her closest friend tried messaging me on social media, but I refused to engage. It has been 3 days since that night. Now living alone, I keep myself occupied to stave off the emptiness. The initial shock and numbness have shifted to a mix of pain, anger, and solitude. I've buried myself in twice-daily workouts, brisk walks, and hours at the office to avoid sinking into darker thoughts. Her words still haunt me, replaying endlessly in my mind. Was her remorse real? This time, I think it was. But that doesn't change anything. Update 2. My lawyer informed me that she had reached out, requesting a meeting before she'd agree to proceed with the divorce. He recommended caution, but advised me to consider meeting her. Reluctantly, I agreed, with strict conditions. The discussion would be recorded, and we would meet in a public setting. She begged for a private conversation at our home, but I stood firm, arranging instead to meet at a quiet corner of a local cafe. When I arrived, she was already seated, rising quickly as though to embrace me. I brushed past her and took a seat across the table. Her appearance was haggard, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked utterly defeated, but I steeled myself against any feelings of sympathy. Turning on the recording device, I informed her that our conversation was being documented. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm so sorry. I already feel so much guilt. Please don't make this worse." She confessed to acting out of selfishness and foolishness, claiming she thought her choices would somehow strengthen our relationship. I couldn't contain my incredulity. "Strengthen us? You believed cheating and deception would somehow bring us closer?" I shot back. When she tried to explain her reasoning, I cut her off, demanding the full truth. How had this begun? How long had it been happening? Between sobs and long pauses, she finally revealed the details. A colleague and her husband had introduced her to the concept of polyamory, At an office party, she had witnessed her colleague kissing a young intern while her husband watched approvingly. Later, confused and intrigued, she had approached her colleague, who explained their lifestyle and warned her that it required mutual consent. But instead of discussing it with me, Allie decided I would accept it because of my love for her. Without my knowledge, she pursued her desires. She admitted to an affair with the same intern from the party but insisted it stopped there. Unconvinced, I pressed her further. Eventually, she confessed to 7 encounters with 3 different men, including one involving 2 of them simultaneously. Each revelation felt like a dagger to my chest. Despite the gravity of her actions, she insisted none of it meant anything. Her attempts to plead for forgiveness fell flat. "You've obliterated the trust between us," I told her coldly. "You've destroyed what we spent years building together." She dissolved into uncontrollable sobs, and for the first time, my own tears fell. She reached for my hand, promising we could rebuild our love, but I couldn't see past her betrayal. "I can't look at you without remembering what you've done," I said firmly. "Reconciliation isn't possible. You need to accept that." Rising from my seat, I ignored her desperate grip on my hand as she begged for one last hug. I turned away, indifferent to the sound of her sobbing. A few days later, her father reached out requesting to speak with me. Out of respect for the kindness her family had always shown me, I agreed. At their home, her parents offered heartfelt apologies. Her father, visibly heartbroken, spoke sparingly, expressing his concern for Ali, who had become reclusive, cried incessantly, skipped meals, and frequently called in sick to work. Her mother cautiously suggested the possibility of reconciliation, but did not push further. I responded politely but firmly, making it clear that our marriage was over. As I left, her father embraced me, offering words of understanding. In an odd way, it was comforting. Months have now passed. The divorce proceedings continue, and I've encountered Ali and her parents several times in court. Ali appears to be a shadow of her former self, frail and almost unrecognizable. Her parents have sought therapy for her, hoping to help her cope. Meanwhile, I have started piecing my life back together, moving on from the wreckage of our marriage. Ali still sends me lengthy emails filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness, but I no longer respond. The woman I once loved is gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognize. Some wounds may never fully heal, but I am free now, free to rebuild, free to begin again. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.